Government is in the planning stages. It wants to set up a new state-owned company, which we'll hear more about later this hour from the Minister, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, because it's a key issue when you consider how reliant South Africa is on small businesses, especially as a key driver of not just economic growth, but also employment. So what will this new entity be able to do that the ministry, as it stands, has not been able to achieve? In fact, we've got the Minister back with us, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. A very good evening to you, Minister. Let's start on that point that I was just making about why it is that we need such a state-owned company to deal with small business in the first place.
Well, the first thing that you will appreciate is the fact that as things stand, small businesses have to go to different places in order to access the services that they're supposed to access. If you're talking about small businesses who need to register for their companies, they go to CIPC. If you talk about small businesses that want to access business development support, they go to CEDA. When they want to access financial support, they go to CIFA. I'm just talking to those that are under the portfolio or working closely with the portfolio. Now, this does not only make the small business to spend much time running around in terms of them accessing the service. It's also costly for them. It delays a lot because these entities, they plan differently. They have different priorities. But now, if we establish a one-stop center, we are able, therefore, to say this is the focus area of the business development support that we are going to provide, and automatically we're able, through the assessment, to say these ones will require funding, and therefore they'll be able to be referred to the funding unit that is responsible to provide the support as expected.
I wonder, though, if the issue is that small business owners have to go from one office to the next to get these things sorted out, or in fact, the problem may perhaps be that the multiple offices are not functioning optimally, and therefore that is where the frustration begins to get worse.
That's also another challenge. But you will have an appreciation that once you have different agencies, I'm sure you would have noticed even with government, although we're servicing the same person, but the priorities of a particular department, they remain the priorities of a particular department, which is why now we say if CEDA, as they're expected to focus on business development support, let's make sure that the kind of support they provide is the kind of support that will automatically put people on the funding side. Right now, we hear small businesses saying, we don't understand, Minister. We went to get assistance from CEDA, but when we went to apply for funding from CIFA, we were not approved. And this talks to the lack of coherence in the planning by the agencies. Whether you talk about the CBDA, which is currently under the National Treasury, and we are bringing it because we are also responsible for cooperatives development. Now, if we bring all of those together, you're able to assess even the capacity of the applicant that you are dealing with. And when you recommend an intervention, it is an informed intervention rather than having different people. If you go to a bank, whether you're applying for a home loan or a vehicle loan, you have two different individuals that are attending to you or different units that attend to you. But it's the banking system at the end of the day. They know that we must make sure that we give access to the people that must apply. We must attend to everything that is required. And this is what we are trying to bring to say, we can do everything at a go. You apply for what you need to apply, and then you go and access what you are supposed to access, of course, within the required budget that we have.
A one-stop shop, but how will it address issues around red tape in the application process? Because, yes, it's all good and well for these agencies to, quote-unquote, merge or get rid of them and then build a new entity altogether. But if the legislation has not changed to meet a business environment that requires entrepreneurs and government to be more nimble, to be more agile, then there is still a problem. So how do you deal with that?
We're in a process of amending the Small Business Act, which talks to the licensing. As things stand, the licensing is dealt by the municipalities. We have engaged SALGA and local government in order to say, can we make sure that we make that process very easy for the small businesses when they apply? Because they apply, but the turnaround times are too long, and it delays whatever that people want to do. Whether they're applying for zoning of the land that they want to access, it takes too long. Now, us working together as the different spheres and different departments that are responsible for the ecosystem of small business development, we are saying let's have an integrated system, which is why we are saying this agency that we are creating is an agency that's going to operate in a hybrid model. There's a digital platform that must have SAPs, that must have SARS, must have CIPC, must have UIF, and the agencies that we have, including the municipality, so that you can be able to apply for license whilst you're applying for a tax clearance automatically as soon as your license is approved. And this is not only one component of red tape. The other challenge of the red tape that our small businesses go through is the stringent criterion when they must access funding. This is why we said now we are putting into different segments the qualifications that are required for the small businesses to access funding. For a particular grouping, for example, on the township and rural businesses, we said at least let's have small businesses that go up to a particular turnover to have a support of about 250,000 rand as a grant. And this is not what was happening. Previously, we would have a 1 million cap for township businesses with stringent requirements to say they must be formalized, they must have ABCD, which is not a true reflection of what we see in township businesses. Okay. This is why we are saying government can introduce measures to provide funding for small businesses, like it happened during the COVID, the guarantee scheme that was launched by National Treasury. It was not taken off, not because small businesses do not want to have access to that, but because there hasn't been enough support on business development that they must be made ready to access funding. Now, an agency that sits and says, all these requirements or this criterion that is being set up by the different funding agencies is not suitable for small businesses. Right. This is why we engage with everyone in order to address all those red tapes, make life easier for small businesses to do what they are supposed to do and access the necessary services and support that they must access.
And realistically, Minister, when would you see this coming online, becoming a reality? Because small businesses say they are in crisis now. Electricity problems in this country are affecting them. Many are having to shut down as a result. Those who even do business with government say they're battling, for example, to get government to pay them their due on time, and the overall economic situation is just not allowing young entrepreneurs, whether in business or still aspiring, to get going.
When the agency is going to come into effect by 1st April in 2024, as we are undertaking the process of the legislation as things stand, once it is finalized, Cabinet has approved up to January, and then will kick effect on the 1st of April to align with the financial year. The other aspect in relation to the challenges that are faced by small businesses, for example, the energy crisis, the minister responsible for electricity has outlined the plans, and ourselves as the department have also clearly said there's a need for us to set aside certain funding that must assist small businesses that are experiencing challenges in relation to the energy challenge that we have. We set aside for township businesses, we've set aside 70 million rands that must assist them. We've set aside 200 million rands for those that are not in the township. And this is just a contribution from ourselves. If you go to the NEF, they also have set aside certain funding. National Treasury, again, has done that, and as the Minister of Electricity, as I indicated. All these interventions are meant to ensure that small businesses can be productive. But it is not just a favor to assist small businesses. It is what is expected of us as the National Development Plan dictates. If we are to create the 11 million jobs that are envisaged in the NDP, we've got to make sure that small businesses thrive. That is why we review the legislations. That is why we are bringing all ecosystem players in one place. This is why we're establishing the Office of the Ombuds that must deal with the lack of compliance on the 30-day payment rule, that must deal with other contractual challenges that our small business go through. These are the things that require all of us to work hand in hand in ensuring that we make things, or we make it easy to do business as small businesses in the different areas. And at the center of that is a clear coordination which is what we're trying to do as the department responsible.
Small Business Minister Stella Ndabeni, good to speak to you. Thank you for your time tonight, Minister.